I love the way it gives us warning.
Yeah.
It says we're now streaming.
I see that too. Yep.
It looks like we are actually live, Kim. Welcome to Kevali Channeling Presents. And I have my very good friend, Kim Wilkinson, with me today. We had some technical difficulties, so I am going to just share this Facebook stream, or this here. I'm going to take over here. So you have to bear with me, Kim. Sorry.
I have lots of patience.
Do you? It's a good thing, because when you're dealing with me, you have to have a lot of patience. It's a thing. Why can't I? Oh, I see. Okay. Technology. It's a beautiful thing.
I have all the faith in the world in you.
You? I've got you fooled. Okay. People are going to be, you're not live. And I'm going to be like, go to my YouTube or go to my Facebook page and click the YouTube. And then you'll see I am actually live. There we go. I've clicked that over. So that should work. And I'm also going to go to this where we're supposed to go live and go technical difficulties.
I'm sure glad you know what you're doing, because I haven't got a clue.
Join us here. Boom. Done. Done, done, and done. Let's hope that's working. Kim, thank you so much for joining me. You have so much happening right now. It's so exciting. Let's jump right into it. First, before we get to all that stuff, let's go and tell people who Kim Wilkinson is and give us that, what I always call it, the 1-minute elevator pitch.
All right. Well, thank you, Kevin, for having me back. It's great to be back on your show again. Let me summarize for those who are maybe don't know me. My name is Kim Wilkinson. I live in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And I do a lot of different things. I teach yoga and meditation. I do a lot of different energy healing, spiritual coaching. And I love to lead retreats. Like everybody, I've been through a lot of life challenges, marriage, divorce, remarriage, blended families. My biggest struggle was 2019 when my son Tristan died of overdose. He was 22 years old. We've had a lot of, mental health struggles within the family, various parts. But I tell people today that his loss was my greatest tragedy and also my greatest gift. And I can honestly and authentically say today that I am living my best life. I very rarely, if at all, experience stress anymore. I really am so blessed. And every day it's just another magical journey. And I guess my if I could, I don't know, you want to call it an elevator pitch, but healing can happen.
Healing can happen.
Healing can happen. Miracles can happen.
That should be your slogan. Just healing can happen. I remember the first time I had you on our show, and I didn't know much about you. I met you. I knew of you online, and then I met you in person when Ken Lewicki and I did our spiritual expo out in Canmore, July 2nd of last year. It's almost it was just over an anniversary. And then I had you on my show, and you told that story about how you lost your son. And then you said those words that still haunt me, and I'm not going to lie, they still haunt me to this day, when you said it was my greatest, how do you say it? It's my greatest
tragedy and my greatest gift.
Can you explain that to people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously the tragedy part is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it's painful to lose anyone in life. Losing your child, before you just is one of those things that's not supposed to happen. I say it's my greatest gift because he was and still is my greatest teacher. And, I learned so much from him while he was still alive and through his mental health struggles and addiction. And then, he led me to not only healing the loss of his life, but when I went in to heal, I healed everything. And this was right before COVID, if you remember. So he died in November 2019. And then a few months later, COVID hit. And I just, for whatever reason, I dove deep into healing. And I realized I had a lot more unresolved stuff to heal. And that's what I did. I just healed everything. I dove into training through the Grief Recovery Institute. So not only taking the program, but becoming a facilitator. I studied Dr. Gabor Mate's Compassionate Inquiry certification. So I really learned a lot about mental health and trauma, emotional health, addictions. I studied some addiction programs. And I just had this, I'll say, constant, just profound healing. I'm a completely different person. It's been amazing. And I'm so grateful for it, because had that not happened, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't be doing the work I do, which I love. I don't feel like I work. I just get all this really cool, great stuff. And
if that's the way it feels, we don't feel like we're working. It's not work when you love what you're doing. And I can honestly say that when you love what you're doing, it's not work.
Exactly. Yeah.
I just love that story. And I love the way you verbalize it, because when you say you're not the same person, and you don't use the words "I'm a better person," it's just, I'm not the same person. People ask me how I got into what I do, and mine happened July 20th of 2020. No, July 12th of 2020. And that's when I took that first course with Ken, and talk about changing my life. I'm not the same person. Better or for worse, I'm doing what I'm doing and loving what I'm doing. So COVID was good to me. It sounds like it's the same for you.
There was a lot of blessings in COVID. I think, I think it forced us to recognize that we all struggle with mental health. We all have shit. We all have stuff to deal with.
Yes.
And it really forced us, to actually sit still. And, we didn't have all these distractions. We couldn't go here and do this and do that. So we had to sit at home and deal with the uncomfortable stuff that we've been just suppressing and avoiding. And that is a huge opportunity if you take it.
And that's the key there. If you decided to take advantage of that, it was a huge opportunity. For Ellison and I, it was a major opportunity, because she was trying to convince me to take Ken's course prior to COVID, and I was always busy. There's always something to do. I'm working, blah, blah, blah. Come July of 2020, I didn't have an excuse. It was like, oh, damn. Okay, yeah, I'll take that course. 10 minutes in, I'm like, oh, I get it now. So now were you, what's the word I'm looking for? Were you a healer? Were you did you have a business before your son crossed over?
Yeah, I definitely didn't do the scope that I do now. And it's an interesting journey too. I never used to do all this. My old life, I call it, I worked in municipal government. I didn't teach yoga until 10 years ago. And I used to teach boot camp classes and spin and all that high impact stuff, right? Like the stuff that really is, it's just it can be just a different type of addiction, right? Yes. For some people, to deal with stress, it's drugs or alcohol or food or gambling or social media. Me, it was exercise.
Oh, okay.
Gym twice a day, teach as many classes as I could. But something led me to yoga. It took me a bit. The first time I did a yoga class, I hated it. I didn't go back for several years. And then, something led me. I always say that I've been divinely guided. And a lot of the time I didn't realize it. But when I look back now, spirit, something led me to exactly where I am today.
Oh,
And
of
I
course.
believe that, I got into yoga, loved taking it, never thought I would teach it. And then that changed, right? I thought, okay, no, I want to be a yoga teacher. And I came home and I said to my husband, I'm going to quit my $95,000 a year job and become a yoga teacher. And he kind of, I don't know what he was thinking, but he said, are you sure that's a good idea? And I said, yeah, it'll all work out. Right. Because I've always trusted that. And it did. And, yoga is, I guess, what led me to meditation and to Reiki and to theta healing. And I just became a course junkie. But when I look back, I feel like, all of that was preparing me for what we were going to go to with our family. Right. And a lot of the mental health stuff with my son and my daughter as well. And yeah, I started my full-time business. I guess it might be 10 or 11 years, maybe 12 years ago now.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I've just continued to grow from there. And I believe, the yoga, the meditation was a big part of helping me deal with the loss of my son.
Yes.
Sure.
100.
And like I said, I did more training after that. And yeah, it's just been an incredible journey, and I'm so, so grateful for it.
I love that story. I really do. And I'm like, when I was preparing for you to come on, I'm like, oh, am I going to bring her through this story again? And both our guides were like, oh yeah. People need to hear what we went through to get to where we are, so they know they're not alone. Lots of people have had a son or a family member die by suicide. So it's not something we should hide under the rug and be embarrassed about. It's something we need to talk about. And I'm just happy I got Kleenex close by. Remember I told you that? But I'm really happy that you are brave enough to be able to talk about it publicly, because I think it's very, very important.
Well, and I've done that since the very day after his death. I actually did a video on my Facebook, just sharing my raw emotion. That was a big part of helping me heal too, sharing this story. I'll share another quick little bit. I've worked very closely with a very good friend of mine and my podcast partner, Sheila Shorten in Edmonton here. And she did a lot of channeling for me with Tristan and my guides. And, one of the things that my guides said to me last year, I think it was last year, was that the reason I am where I am, in my life and everything, is because of my acceptance of my circumstances. And that has stuck with me forever, right? Because if we're not accepting, we're resisting. And I mean, we go into that place whenever there's any type of loss, whether it's loss of job, loss of a loved one, loss of a home. I mean, there's so much loss in our world right now.
Oh, yes.
But the truth is, we're always going to have loss. Every single one of us is going to die.
It's a fact. At
some point. And not to say that I'm completely immune, and some people might think I've completely shut off emotion. No, that's not it. I still miss my son every day. There are still some days where I may shed some tears, but it's for a few moments.
It's not all day.
The gratitude I have for what we went through, for what I have today, just easily sweeps that aside.
Do you have, when you share your story, do you have a lot of parents reach out to you for advice, or just to be able to talk because you've been through it?
Yeah. And I mean, it is different for everybody. And
thank you.
There's no timeline that you should be over your grief in this amount of time. And everybody does, process differently. But I think the one thing that just stands out for me is that, in a case where we've lost somebody has died, whether it's illness or old age or death or accident or suicide or overdose, all the grieving in the world, nothing is going to bring them back. Nothing is going to bring them back. And there was a part of me when I remember the moment when I found out that he had died. Of course, there was this pain, but there was also this sense of, thank God he is not suffering anymore.
Oh, wow.
Because to be human is to suffer, right? And I mean, he did suffer a lot with mental health. He suffered physically. I mean, he had some pretty massive surgeries, which I know came from all of this stress. And I mean, for him to not be suffering anymore was just like, that made me so happy. I mean, it was weird to feel such sadness and such joy in the same experience, but that's what I felt.
Well, and it's funny because, I mean, not even close to the same thing, but when my mom passed away, she was almost 95. She was 3 days before her 95th birthday. And I kind of giggle when I say it because people always, oh, your mom passed away. How did she die? She was 95.
Yeah.
She lived a good life. But I was the same way. I was there when she crossed, and I was sad, but man, I was just so relieved that she wasn't in, and she was in pain for the last bit. So I get that. I get that, two emotions, and then you start feeling guilty.
Well, it's funny because that is a normal thing, right? A guilt, and you know, you could flip that the other way, and you know, maybe we should feel guilty for wanting them to be here when they're free and not experiencing pain. You know,
yes,
to be here is like saying, no, you're going to stay here and you're going to deal with all this crap that's happening on earth like I am. Right?
Well, and I constantly tell my clients when I'm in a session with them is, and Allison always says, you say that so often, and it's, we live over there, we just visit here.
Yeah.
This is just such a small fraction of our existence that once we go home, we look back and go, what was I so stressed about all that whole 90 years, 95 years? It was such a small little thing.
And as I'm sure you know, when we are not necessarily healed, but we're in the right vibration, we can still have a relationship with those who aren't on earth anymore. It's just a different relationship, but it's a beautiful relationship. But you kind of have to be able to heal and move into that place of acceptance and letting go to have that new relationship.
And it's important that the way you said that, because anybody can do what I do as far as being a medium. And I just said it the other day because in my other life in a sports industry, a medium is kind of like, huh? And I talk to dead people. It just makes it easier. Yeah. And anybody can do what I do if they choose to bring that vibration up and literally learn how to do it. I did.
Yeah.
No,
and the messages are undeniable when they start to come through, right? As you know, like the things that happen and
it's been 3 years and I keep saying hundreds of readings. I'm going to have to change it. I think it's 1,000. I should have kept track so I could mark that 1,000 reading and be excited about it, but it really doesn't matter. Hundreds of readings. And I still get blown away when I say something to somebody and they're like, how did you know that? And I'm like, I didn't. It's like, there's no way I would have known that. It's obviously coming from the other side. I'm still blown away by it. So I hope that never changes for me.
It's fascinating. And just when you think you've kind of figured out the spirit world, nope. There's 4 more doors that open up with, you know, 1 million more doors behind those. It's fascinating.
Well, it's funny because somebody asked me the other day, well, when do you finish healing? And I'm like, you don't. I honestly don't think you finish healing until you go back home. And then even then, there's a whole new level of healing you have to do when you go home. So
yeah,
it's just continuous. You mentioned real quickly, and I know time's going to go by way too quick, and we only have an hour. But you mentioned your podcast partner. You have, what do you call it? You call it The View. Is that right? It's
the Spiritual Engagement Podcast.
The Spiritual Engagement Podcast.
Yeah.
But it's like The View for spirituality, is it not?
That's our other show. See, we do so many different things. So
see?
I know.
I have to keep up here.
I know. Try to keep up, Kevin, okay? Sheila and I also teamed up with another good friend of ours, Tracy Montgomery, and we did a season. We were paused right now, but the Spiritual View, same kind of thing, like a podcast but video.
Yeah.
So we're on break right now, but yeah, we've always got stuff going.
So what are you doing now? Which podcast are you doing now?
The Spiritual Engagement podcast keeps running. We just started season 2. We finished our 1 year, August 18th, actually.
Oh, very cool.
So our episodes come out every second Thursday at 6 a.m. And we've had a lot of really fascinating guests. I think we actually might have to have you on as a guest. I think that would be great.
Me being a guest, I don't know.
We will chat about that.
And people can find that in any of the podcast platforms.
Yeah, it's Apple Podcast and Spotify, and we have a Facebook page, the Spiritual Engagement Podcast, and we kind of post on there. Yeah, it's been everything to do with spirituality, and we just go with the flow.
That is cool.
And we get a lot of guests sharing some really cool stories.
That is awesome.
Yeah,
that is awesome. We need more and more of what we do. I'd love to see a podcast channel dedicated strictly to spirituality and just put them all together. So a person could just go to one. I don't even know how to describe it, but one
channel
place
or something.
Yeah, I think it would be kind of cool. You also mentioned that you do retreats, which always amaze me. One time, Allison and I are going to make it work to come on a retreat to Thailand.
Yes, that's a must.
But your next retreat is not Thailand, it is
Bali.
And when is that?
That is September 19th until October 4th this year, coming up.
Now, what happens on your typical, on your typical retreat? What do you do? I know on this one's going to be different than Thailand.
Yeah, my international retreats aren't so much yoga focused, not like your typical yoga retreats. It's more about the culture, the adventure. However, for those that want to do yoga, meditation, it's still available. So it really just depends on who's coming. The last couple retreats, it's been people more interested in just the travel part and the adventure and the culture and that sort of thing. And I've had all ages. I've had couples, husbands and wives come. I've had mother-daughters, girlfriends, people just coming on their own. It's a lot of fun. So those ones are really more about, the culture, the adventure. Whereas my local retreats, so I have another one here just north of Edmonton at Riverside Acres, September 8th to 10th. And that one is a lot more about the spiritual healing, bring in some yoga meditation, some hypnosis healing, cacao ceremony, more spiritual based.
What ceremony did you say?
Cacao ceremony.
And it's funny, my brain picked up cow ceremony, and I'm like, cow ceremony? What are you doing with a cow?
Cacao ceremony.
So explain a cacao ceremony for people like myself who've never experienced it.
Okay, so cacao it's a non-psychedelic plant medicine. So it looks like you're drinking a cup of hot chocolate, but it doesn't quite taste like hot chocolate. So I get my cacao. It's like a brick of what looks like chocolate. Comes from Peru. It's ceremonial grade. So everything about it, from the planting, the harvesting, packaging, is all ceremonial. And like I said, it's non-psychedelic. But when you consume the cacao, so I will host an event, or if we're doing a ceremony, I'll have a group of people. I prepare the cacao. So how I prepare it is obviously with some hot water and the cacao, and we add red chili pepper and some cinnamon. That's sort of the traditional ceremonial way of preparing it. So it's got a bit of a heat. And how it works is when you consume it, the, active ingredient, if you want to call it that, is theobromine, which signals the brain to release dopamine, which is the happy hormone. So it's a heart opener.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I say it's like drinking a cup of love or joy. You drink it and it just it helps to raise the vibration, open the heart. So it's really nice to do before a meditation. A lot of times I'll do, you've done a soul rebirthing kind of ceremony with me. So sometimes I'll do that before that.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Now you offer these in Edmonton. Is it a place is there a place people could go to and they stay for the whole weekend?
Yeah, so we actually just had a day retreat just this past Sunday at a place called Providence Renewal Center. So it was just a 1-day event. So, nobody had to stay overnight, but there is a place just north of Edmonton called Riverside Acres, and
See,
it's
that's
up
the one I
around the
keep seeing.
Legal-Vimy area. Yeah, and it's very special, extra special to me because, first of all, the land there it's magical. It really is. But the accommodations are these cute little off-grid cottages, and they're all named after men who have died by suicide or overdose. So I have a cottage for Tristan there. And I got to host the very first retreat when they opened there back in, I think it was 2020 or 2021 that they opened. And I've held a couple of retreats a year ever since. And it's just a beautiful place. It's just, out in the middle of nowhere really, but on this land, 7 little cottages. They're building a 7th one, all off grid, outdoor cedar showers. There's a labyrinth out there. There's a beautiful river that surrounds it. It's just a magical, magical place. So, and it's just about, Legal-Vimy area. From where I am on the south side, it's an hour. And I just love it there.
Nice. Ellison, you're listening. We got to check this out because I literally got goosebumps as you were saying that. I think we need to.
It's a magical place.
We need
Just
to go.
being there on that land, it's crazy the healing that happens.
Isn't it crazy how some land, and maybe you have an explanation, how some land is just different than others. Like you can go somewhere and you just feel it. You just feel like, wow, this is special.
We did a podcast with the owner of that property on our spiritual engagement podcast. And if I remember correctly, the title might be about living a divinely guided life. And she shares the story on that podcast about how this place came to be. And it's a very interesting story.
Oh,
So
very cool. We'll have to go back. Yes, 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 and yes. Now you have something really cool happening within your business. And unfortunately, because we had to, at the last minute, switch where we were, what is the name of your business, Kim?
It's Empowered Life with Kim Wilkinson.
So that you can go to empoweredlife.com, is that right?
Empoweredlifenow.net.
Okay.
Yeah. Or you can access my web link through my Instagram or Facebook, TikTok. I'm easy to find, right? It's the lady with the blue hair.
The lady with the blue, that's funny because my COVID brain sometimes I know what I want to say, but it doesn't come out. And someone asked me who I was interviewing today, and I'm like, oh, crap.
Blue hair.
The lady with the blue hair. That's how
it's become my marketing. It's like, honestly, it's the best marketing branding for my business, because when I go to Thailand every year, the last couple of times I've gone back, they see me, right? The locals, you're back, the blue hair. They remember. So I got to keep it.
You do. You can never
like
change
trademark.
that blue hair because you'll be forever known as a lady with the blue hair. And there ain't nothing wrong with that.
I'm easy to find. I have had somebody find me in the middle of a market in Thailand, in Chiang Mai, eating ice cream, and I hear my name. I'm thinking, who the heck knows me here? But somebody found me and they recognized me by my hair in a sea of people.
That's hilarious.
So it works for me in many ways.
That's hilarious. So within that business, you are doing some incredible stuff. I know, I don't know if it was the last time I had you on or if it was after that I did that session with you. What did you call it? Rebirthing or?
What was the rebirthing the soul? Yeah.
People, if you do nothing else, you've got to get a hold of Kim to do this. But now she comes and she tells me just before we come on air, she blows my mind once again. What is it you're doing now?
Well, I'm doing quantum hypnosis healing, and it's mind blowing. Like if you thought the session we did before was powerful, this will blow your socks off. So for those that don't know quantum hypnosis healing. Maybe you've heard of Dolores Cannon. Have you heard of Dolores Cannon?
I have not.
Okay. Check out Dolores Cannon if you're not familiar with her. She passed years ago, but she did this work for over 30 years. And so I've done her training, and I've done a few other hypnosis trainings. But basically what happens in these sessions, and it's a 3-hour session. And part of the session is taking a person into past lives, because there's relevant information that we can bring from those past lives that help us to understand what's going on in this life and clear a bunch of stuff. But the really cool part, and my favorite part about doing these sessions, is after the past lives, what I do is I actually then have a conversation. And so this is, it's different than channeling. So I'm not intuitively telling the people about their past lives. They're telling me. They're in hypnosis. I'm saying, okay, what do you see? What's happening? They describe for me, and then okay, what's happening next? I just gather the information. We go to how they died, so we know that, right? Because maybe somebody who has a fear of water in this lifetime, they may have died by drowning in a past life.
Yes.
Birthmarks can be a certain, either something specific there.
Any fear. I had a horrible fear of mice.
Okay.
And it didn't make sense to me. It was like, this makes no sense. Through somebody else, I went and I found out that I was literally in a dungeon, and that's how I died, by being chewed on by rats and mice.
Yeah. So now, are you no longer afraid of mice?
It was really funny because they did a whole bunch of clearing and stuff that I didn't understand. And then I'm going to say 3 weeks later, I saw a mouse on my back deck, just a little field mouse. And normally, even that little field mouse would make my heart race.
Yeah.
And I remember at first I looked at it and jumped back, and then I went, well, that's weird.
Yeah. You just respond so differently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what we do in these sessions. So after I'm done having the person explain their past life, what I do is then I speak to the subconscious or their higher self. There's different names for it. So what happens then is it's still them speaking, but it's not really them speaking. So they even switch to speaking in third person.
Oh,
so
wow.
While they're explaining their past lives, I see this, I feel this, I'm doing that. And then when I ask to speak the subconscious, I might say, okay, why did Kevin need to see these specific past lives? He needed to be aware of whatever, right? But that'll be coming out of your mouth. It's not me channeling. So
isn't that interesting?
It is. So I never know what's going to be said, and I just continue to ask the questions. But what's really cool is I can ask the subconscious to scan the body and tell us what is going on, like physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically. And who knows what's going to come out, right? I've had them say there's a lot going on in the heart. We need to relieve some pressure from the heart. So I'll say, okay, can you do that? And they will, and the person might start breathing differently. The body might start twitching. I mean, I've seen some pretty wild stuff. It's fascinating. And I'll just ask and clear as much as we can in a session. And then I ask the subconscious to recede, bring the person back out of hypnosis, and then we kind of talk about what was said, what happened. And I always record it for them.
And this is a 3-hour session?
Yeah, it's about a 3-hour, because we sit down and I gather a bit of information first. And sometimes people come with specific things, like, they have these illnesses or diseases or injuries. And sometimes they just say, I want to know what's going on. So we can focus on specific things, or we can see what comes up, or we can focus on both. And if you read Dolores Cannon's books, watch any of her videos, I mean, she did this for over 30 years. And in sessions, I mean, miracle healings have happened. Like cancer has been gone. People have come off medications. I've experienced that with a client of my own coming off medication. I mean, it's crazy profound, the healing that can happen, and so quickly.
That's
and I'm
insane.
going, where was this? I had to do it the long, hard way.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
but
what?
Yeah. So it's my favorite thing to do now because it is so powerful and it's so instant.
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then to take it a little deeper, because I know you found this fascinating, we had a little chat. So I mentioned we had, our family went through a lot of difficulty there. And even before my son passed, there was just life stuff. And I have a daughter too, who struggled with a lot of mental health. And she gave me permission to share a little bit of her story tonight. And she's also sharing it and coming out to help others as much as possible too. So you can watch for her full story. Her name is, she's on Facebook as Kaylee LaRae. And I normally don't work on family, whatever it is. I'll send them to a friend of mine who does healing, but her and I both thought we need to do this session. And I went to visit her. She lives in Elk Point now. And I wasn't even sure because she's had so much trauma. She's been on a lot of medication, a lot of diagnosis. But it was crazy what happened in that first session. First of all, when we went to her past lives, and she had some very traumatic past lives, 3 of them that were very traumatic. And not surprising. And then when we went to speak to the subconscious, I always ask permission to speak to the subconscious. So I asked, and the answer that came back at me was no, that I did not have permission. And I thought, okay. So I asked why. I said, why can't I? And they said, because she doesn't trust. And I said, okay, is there something I can do to help her trust? And so when they're talking, it's coming out of her, it's her voice. But they said, put your hand on her heart. So I put my hand on her heart and I said, now do I have permission to speak to the subconscious? Yes. And then we started asking questions. And it was unbelievable. I mean, and we've been recording them. We've done a few sessions because somebody with that much, miracles can happen and the body can heal, but the physical body can only handle so much at one time.
Yes.
So sometimes we just, we do as much as we can. And then, a few days later, we do another session. But it was so crazy to see her body like twitching and convulsing. And they were talking about, and this is where, we kind of say she was almost a little bit misdiagnosed. So she's been on all these medications for 6-7 years. What was happening? Her biggest problem was she was so severely dehydrated, her organs were shutting down.
Oh, interesting.
When I asked them to scan the body, they first went to her intestines and they said her intestines are twisted and tangled. And I said, well, why is that? Like, what's causing that? And they said, dehydration. She needs water. She needs water. She needs water. And I said, okay, what else is happening? And then they talked about the kidneys. The kidneys, they were almost failing. Like it was like her organs were like dried up jerky.
Wow.
And I haven't lived with her for, 10, 12 years. So I don't know what her eating habits are like. And
well, yeah.
After she tells me she never drinks anything. And I'm going, well, this makes so much sense, right? And they talked about her brain. And they talked about how one of the medications was actually affecting her brain. And there was all these different things. But basically what we realized is that, because she was in such a state of dehydration, that alone was causing the body to be in fight or flight just to exist, right? So when the body's already in fight or flight to just be alive, anything that comes at you is overwhelming, right? So it has the panic attacks and the depression. And what's interesting, if you look at the symptoms of dehydration, they're almost identical to the symptoms of depression.
Well, that's so weird because I'm working with a coach, and that's her big thing is you need minimum 72 ounces of water, Kevin.
It's crazy.
I was maybe drinking 24 ounces.
I upped my water since that, and I feel so different.
Did you notice I grabbed my water when you were talking?
Here too, but it's so crazy, right? So, she's having these panic attacks and the doctors are just giving her more meds and telling her to go home. And so, yes, she, was having depression and anxiety and all these other things. But so we did this session. It was, it was just before what would have been Tristan's birthday. So I think it was like July 22nd or 23rd that we did this session. And so we're about almost a month later, and she is doing so much better. She is off all her prescribed medications. She doesn't need sleeping pills to go to bed at night. I mean, not that life is perfect. She's still got a lot of healing to do, but just by getting the water, right? And the other thing that we realized, and I started to learn about this before I did this session with her, is about our need for salt, right? We need salt to help us absorb water and minerals. But how many years were we told salt is bad for you? Yes. Cut salt out of your diet, right? And so I did that. And like for the last several years, I've had, the muscle aches and the pains and the inflammation and all this. I was dehydrated too, not to her extent. But yeah. So she started taking in salt, a little bit of Celtic salt every day, drinking more water, and then also taking vitamins and minerals, right? Like they actually said she needs magnesium, she needs B complex. And there's 2 other things that they said, because I asked, what does she need? But also you need the salt to be able to absorb that, right? So just by making those little changes, the body is now in a healthier state. And what's interesting, this is how we noticed healing is happening, because, life is still going to throw crap at us.
Always.
Now she's not going into these panic attacks. She's not crying. Right? It's still not great. Doesn't feel good, but she's able to go, okay, this sucks, but okay, I'll deal with it. Whereas before she would be like knocked down for 3 days.
Wow. Yeah. That is so cool. That must be so cool. Being a parent, and I have 2 kids, being a parent, that must just take this to a different level for you.
It's mind-blowing, like I said, and she's always been very intuitive and very gifted. Before her brother really struggled with his mental health, and that she used to do a lot of readings. She would channel and do card readings, and very gifted. But of course, mental health takes you away from you. You lose that connection, right?
Yes.
I mean, you lose the confidence. And we hear stories all the time about people who just go into these horrible experiences, dark places, and they come out with these bigger gifts.
Yes.
And this is what I'm seeing with her. We've been still working on these little healing sessions with her, but we've also been, experimenting a little and seeing, what else can she do? And we discovered that she can also, through hypnosis, I can ask consciousness, the subconscious, whoever you want to
higher self, whatever label you want to put on that.
Exactly. I can ask to scan another person's body. So we asked for a scan of her boyfriend's body, and we got this information, and they did a healing, and it was just like, it's mind-blowing. I suggested to her, I said, maybe next time we should try the pets and see, what we can do with that. And then the really cool and exciting thing, which it's just all making so much sense now, is I asked the subconscious if she could channel her brother, if he could speak through her. And the answer was yes. But they said not yet. There's some clearing that needs to happen and some forgiveness that needs to happen, which makes sense. But I think what we're going to see is the 3 of us coming together and offering this healing, Tristan coming from the other side, bringing in that healing energy, and Kaylee, being the translator, and then me just kind of facilitating. And, her and I have done a lot of these sessions online. It's not always all in person.
That's the cool part. And that's something I really want people to hear tonight, because not everybody's within driving distance of Edmonton. You don't need to be.
No. And, I'll share another cool story, because this is a powerful message. Because we all go through these doubts, right? And we've all heard we are limitless, right? We're limitless. And the only limits are the ones we put on ourselves, but we don't understand the truth of that.
Oh.
So I do this with Sheila too. I take Sheila, my podcast partner, into hypnosis, and she channels consciousness and delivers messages. And this was the event we just did on Sunday. But so her and I just did this to get some information about what's possible. And one of the things they said to us one day was that we, meaning Sheila and I and many people on earth, understand the expansiveness of the mind, of the soul. But they said what you don't understand is that the physical body has that same expansiveness, meaning anything is possible. Miracle healing can happen, but we put those barriers there, right? From the simple things like menopause. We tell ourselves, oh yeah, when I reach this age, I'm going to start to get this, this, and this. And we create it. But we don't have to. And so that was like, it took me a bit to really wrap my head around that. And there's still some days where I got to think about that. But the body is capable of crazy things. And we did another session with a young man whose spine is going crooked. When we asked about why that's happening, what they said is he's moving away from his truth, which made so much sense. Because if you know anything about spinal energetics, the soul and our truth is all within the spine. And in that session, working with consciousness through this type of healing, we saw the spine start to straighten, not completely because it would have been too overwhelming, but we saw it straighten.
Wow.
It's crazy. Yeah. But I can tell you it's happening.
Funny because as a 59-year-old male, I'm sitting here going, where are the limits? And then I think, I used to get sinus infections. I don't know if I told you this story.
I used to too.
And I used to get horrible sinus infections. Every month, my face would literally swell up. I'd have to go to the doctor. They'd have to put me on antibiotics to bring it down. Yeah. I went to see Kim Wurich, and her and Natasha Willoughby. And this is how I always explain it. They did some voodoo on me and they went, blah, 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 blah. I have not had a sinus infection since.
I'm with you. Same thing. I would get them all the time. I'd be on antibiotics. I haven't been sick in 4 years.
I don't understand how it worked. All I know is it worked.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't that? If you can fix that, why can't you fix a spine? Why can't you fix? Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously broken bones, we still need modern medicine.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying. But you go over to Europe and there's people with Reiki that are energy healers right in the operating room.
Yeah.
Why? Because they know.
If something works, and I'm not against medicine either, and I'm not against medication because sometimes we need it, but I think we've come to a society where it's just like, well, you need this medication and you'll be on it for life and you just got to accept that. That I don't believe. Coming back to the online part, again, doubts, and I don't know about you, you've taken a lot of courses too, but I've taken a lot of courses where they say, don't combine this with this, and you can only do this in person, not online. And I used to, understand that, but I was like, nope, I'm pretty sure I can do this online. And so I said to Sheila, I said, I want to have a conversation with consciousness about this and see what I need to do. Because I thought, maybe I just got to change something, right? Because I know some people will say, you can't take someone into hypnosis online. Like, what if you lose the connection? And I'm going, oh, good point. And I'm also saying, well, okay, there's got to be some protective measures you can put in place. And I had already done a few sessions online at that point anyway, because, I don't like to follow all the rules.
No, are you a rule breaker?
Not a big one. But I wanted to be respectful. That's why I wanted to ask, right? But when I asked consciousness, I said, okay, can I do these hypnosis sessions online? And the answer I got was, of course. And I said, okay, what do I need to do different? And this will blow your mind. You know what the answer was? They said, remove the doubt.
It's that simple.
Right?
That simple.
It's that simple. And, you know, I've done that. And ever since, like, I do most of my sessions online. They are just as effective as the ones in person. In fact, I think they might be a little bit, not better. The benefits are when you're in your own home. I mean, I have a beautiful, comfortable place here, but you're in your own home. You can have earbuds in, so there's no distraction. Like sometimes my dog barks.
Yeah.
And when we're done, you don't have to drive home. You can just relax. Right. And when I do in person, I just record voice on the voice memo. But when we do it like this on Zoom, you could be laying on your bed and we're just recording it. And then you can watch what happened to your body while we do this work.
See, I was lucky, and that's why I keep saying how lucky I was that I started taking my courses through COVID, because you weren't allowed to get together. So I literally, after my level 2 with Ken Lewicki, he tells you to go out and do 20 readings for friends and family. And now he tells the story every time. He says, I have one student, he went out and did 75. Because after my first, like, I think the first 3 or 4, I just did it on Facebook Messenger, and I kind of typed the messages out because I was too shy. And then it was my nephew who said, no, let's go on Facebook Messenger and do video chat. And I was like, okay. Yeah. And that's when it all clicked in. And so all the rest of them were on Zoom. And I do all my readings on Zoom, except if I'm at an expo.
It's powerful. And I mean, there is something about in-person connection. And I do love that too. But I mean, there's so many people that are in remote areas. Yes. Or that don't have access to a vehicle, or, you know, people who are really deep in suffering, that the fear of just leaving their home.
I'm an international medium. I can say that because not only do I have clients in Canada, from coast to coast in Canada, I do in America. I have clients in Bali. I have clients in Australia. I have clients across the world. I couldn't do that if I had to fly there, because they would have to pay me too much.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And we can help a lot more people,
yes.
You know, all over it. Yeah. It's incredible. I love connecting with people from other countries.
I love when I have even just America, because America is different than Canada. I don't care what anybody says. It's a different culture. They think differently than a Canadian does. It's just different. Better, worse, it's just different. But we only have 10 minutes to go. So you talked a few times about you take people into a what's the word I'm looking? Say again.
Hypnosis.
Hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Can everybody be hypnotized?
Yes. And there are different levels, you know, of, you know, being in trance. Trance and hypnosis can be the same thing, right? I think a lot of people hear hypnosis and they think of, oh yeah, you're up on a stage and, you know, some guy.
That's exactly where I went.
Chicken, right?
Yes.
Which, I mean, that can be a form of hypnosis. And there are other forms that I've studied where, you know, you know, rather than going into the past life, we can just go right into hypnosis and sort of reprogramming the brain with beliefs, right? Like clearing old beliefs, downloading new beliefs, if you want to call it that way. So there's that way. I kind of, depending on the client and what they need, I might combine different levels. But a lot of times when people do the quantum hypnosis, I mean, they're in a state of hypnosis, but they're still aware of them speaking. They can hear themselves. Sometimes they remember what they're saying, and other times they don't remember. They don't remember all of it. Even at the end of session, I don't remember everything. I'm so into it and almost maybe, you know,
yes.
in trance myself. But like 97, 98% of the people that I've worked with easily go into that and have the subconscious speak through. I've had one client where there was just so much stored emotional energy. We weren't able to get deep enough for the subconscious to speak through. I also had someone who had such a blocked throat chakra. And now that doesn't mean we still can't get the healing. I can still ask the subconscious to do things. Or as I mentioned, this new option with my daughter being able to do this for people. And Sheila and I have been doing this for these local events here. We call it Connecting with Consciousness. Very similar to what I was just explaining about my daughter. And it's just powerful. It's powerful. So the person can just be fully conscious. But I mean, I could hypnotize you just in a conversation like this. I mean, we've all been hypnotized. We've been hypnotized our whole life. When you think about it, right? It's the programming, right?
Well, it is.
How hypnotized have we become from watching TV?
Oh, huge.
You know, our belief systems. And that's really all hypnosis is it's just, you know, changing those belief systems. You know, kind of, you remember in the days when we used to defrag our computer?
Yes, that's really funny.
What is that? It's kind of like, you know, yeah.
I was on my computer today. That's funny that you said defrag, because I was like, my computer's running really well, but I've never defragged this thing. I wonder if I have to. And I meant to ask my son, and I'm glad I didn't, because he probably would have laughed at me.
I don't even know if that's a thing anymore, but you know, I just, you know, the old files and you get rid of them, right? So
yes.
that, you know, we delete and we bring in new programming, and it can be done in a simple conversation. So much like words are powerful, right? We've heard that words are powerful. But if I were to get really intentional about the words and use a story to tell you, I could basically, you know, reprogram.
Well, I mean, we're programmed from a young age.
Every
My
day.
guides are showing me the McDonald's logo. That's literally programming. You ask any child, what's your favorite fast food? Without even hesitating, they're going to say McDonald's, because it's programmed into their head that McDonald's is the best place to go eat. It's not because of its great food.
It's the Happy Meal.
Right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
Is there any danger with this? Like, is it and you brought it up, so I'm going to touch on it. Doing it online, what happens if you put me into a hypnotic state and we have a storm and my internet cuts out?
Yeah, good question. So, and it's funny because, you know, there's always cues. When, like, going into it, even just the simple fact of saying, you know, when you wake up from this, you're going to feel wonderful all over. So even if you wake up on your own, you're going to feel wonderful all over, because that's what your subconscious has basically held on to. That's the expectation of the outcome. Right?
Gotcha.
We could do things like, okay, we're going to set your alarm. Let's say we're meeting from 12 till 3. We're going to set your alarm from 3:15. And no matter what, when you hear that alarm go off, you're going to be fully awake. You're going to feel wonderful all over. You know, there's so many different things. I've never had that problem. I've done a lot of online sessions. I
mean, I've done Zoom for all my readings, literally hundreds and hundreds. And I've had internet go out, but it comes right back. It's never not been there. So, what do you charge for these sessions?
So I have a few different options. I have a 1 hour intro to hypnosis, which is $88, and that can be online or in person. The 3 hour online or in person is regular $350. I have a special on right now for the online, which is $299, and then tax. Yeah, it's a good deal. And then I've just launched a coaching package. So for people who have a lot that they want to work through. So someone like my daughter, or I have a few other clients that, you know, there's a lot of stuff there. Rather than all these, you know, 3 hour sessions, there's a package. So there's a 1 month package or a 3 month package, where basically the first session is that big 3 hour session. And then after that, it's kind of 1 hour sessions, you know, a couple times a month.
How many times a month? Sorry, I spoke over
once
you.
a week.
Oh, wow.
Once a week. Yeah. So that can be online or in person. And there's sort of two, we'll say, themes. So you can go the health and healing route, or you can be the business coaching route for those that want to grow their business, right? Because the limiting beliefs and the barriers, the doubts. So through the hypnosis, we can clear a lot of that. And honestly, I think with clearing the business stuff, it also crosses over to the health and healing stuff, but people can kind of decide what avenue they want to go down.
Oh, very cool. And what do you charge for that coaching?
Oh gosh, now I'm going to have to look again. Let me see.
I actually had it up and then I turned it off, and I should have left it up.
So the 1 month is $4.99, and the 3 month is on sale right now, $12.99
for 3 months.
Yeah.
And that gets you the 3 hour and then a 1 hour every week.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all recorded. Recording is
I love that you're able to keep the prices reasonable. Yes, we have to make money. It's a fact, people. If society said we didn't need money, Kim and I would do everything for free. Yeah. But society says we need money. It's the thing. So this is our business. And I think what you're offering and the pricing you're offering is phenomenal. Again, where can people reach out to you? Obviously, Kim Wilkinson on Facebook, YouTube, or
TikTok. So Facebook, Empowered Life with Kim Wilkinson, or just find me on my personal page, Kim Wilkinson. It's easy to find, the blue hair. I'm on Instagram and TikTok. I have a Linktree website. It's if you're familiar with the Linktree, it's just Linktree /quantum hypnosis. And that kind of takes you to all my different pages. You can get to our podcast from there. You can find all my programs, retreats from there.
Very, very cool. Miss Kim, thank you so much. This has been I just love when you come on, because you're always just like so genuine and so, what's the word? Authentic, that it's refreshing to me. And I told you this story off air, but I'm going to repeat it for because we're on air. What a lot of people know and a lot of people don't know is I caught COVID in 2021, December 2021. It took me off my feet. I've never been that sick. Haven't been able to work. And so I've been doing what I can through Kevali channeling. And Ken and I put on an expo out in Canmore. Like I said, that's where I met Kim for the first time in person. At one point in the afternoon, Ken was on stage. I was supposed to be paying attention to him on stage and keeping time and telling him to get off stage. But for some reason, something in my head says, no, you got to go downstairs. And I was like, no, Ken asked me to make sure, go downstairs. I'm like, okay, fine. And I went downstairs, and Kim is doing a reading with this really tall guy. And he had this cool glow about him. And I was like, and for some reason, as I walked in, Kim was right on the corner, and I heard this gentleman say something about he does something in sports. Being the big sports fan I am, and it was like, after he walked away from Kim, I just went right up to him. We started talking. His name was Rod Peterson. Anybody knows what I'm doing now is I'm working with Rod Peterson on the Rod Peterson show. I've been guest host. I'm his sales coordinator. I'm living a dream. And I told Kim, I said, you don't realize, but that's because of you. He stayed because he wanted a reading from Kim. You were busy that day. You were doing reading after reading. He had to stay to get a reading from Kim, or else he probably would have left. And we would never have met. It's really bizarre how the world works.
The universe is always divinely guiding us.
It's really bizarre. Bizarre. And now I can say Rod is probably one of my best friends in the world. I can say that without a doubt. So It's what a weird coincidence how the world works. Anyways.
Such a great guide. It's so great that you two teamed up like that. I love that.
It's really cool when I talk to someone like that who's been into professional sports at a very, very high level. I mean, he was 20 years the voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders in a league that I love. And then be able to talk to him. And I didn't meet him as a celebrity. I just met him as Rod. And as a spiritual, we started talking spiritually first. And it's really cool when I come on his show and he calls me Kevin the Medium. And now people are recognizing me as this sports guy, Kevin the Medium. How cool is that can mesh together?
It's so cool.
right?
Love that
Anyways,
you guys are doing that.
Thank you so much, Kim. You're a sweetheart. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm jealous that you get to go to Bali and hang out with Mr. Ken Lewicki. Give him a giant hug when you see him from me.
Maybe we'll do a live.
Oh, you should. You should do a live. I'm going to bug him and tell him you have to do a live because I'm doing a show with him tomorrow night. We do the Ask Ken show, 7 o'clock again. If you're on Facebook, YouTube, it will be on my YouTube channel, my Facebook channel, hopefully. And if we don't have technical difficulties, or just YouTube.
There won't be. No limits.
It's only a Kim thing. Because there was technical difficulties last time. It was really funny because I was getting ready to come upstairs and Allison says, oh, I hope her internet's better this time. Because last time she was so interesting.
Everywhere I go, anything electrical, lights, yeah.
That's
a whole other show.
Energy you put out, though. It is, I swear, it's the energy you put out.
Thank you so much for having me on again. It was really great to chat with you. I always love connecting with you. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
We'll have to do it again in probably 6 months or so, maybe springtime, see what's new and exciting things you're doing then.
I'm sure there'll be something.
I'm sure. Okay, folks. Next week, I am interviewing a good friend of mine, Lynette Waltham. I think that's how you say her last name. She has a great little business out in I'm going to call it Central Alberta. So tune in next week. Tomorrow, we have the Ask Ken show, like I just mentioned. Make sure you tune in for that. And if you need to get a hold of me, Kevali Channeling on Facebook is the best way. Until then, you have yourself, I got to figure out how to get out of live.